Hey guys, Russ Tyndall here with Blue Line Wood Flags. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today we are in the studio and we are talking about my design process and how I design American flags and get them prepped to cut on the CNC. This video is geared towards the beginner, towards the new user. Perhaps you're new to CNC and you want to get into carving American flags, then you have come to the right place. If you are an experienced user and perhaps you haven't cut flags before, again, you've come to the right place. I'm going to show you my workflow and how I do things. So if you have a better way of doing things, by all means, stick with your methods and let me know in the comment section below. I just might steal your way of doing things if they're better than my way. Let me preface this video by saying I use VCarve Pro. This is workable in all versions of the Vectric lineup of software, whether you have VCarve Desktop, VCarve Pro Desktop, Cut 2D, or Aspire. Their interfaces are all generally the same. There's some minor variations, but you will pretty much note that they're all the same, and you can follow along with my video and apply it to what you do within your flavor of Vectric. If you're not using a Vectric lineup of products, perhaps you're using something different like Carbide Create or something else, you can apply these same principles to your software suite and just follow along and apply them directly to how you do things within your software. So without further ado, let's get after it. All right, guys, we're going to jump right in and I'm going to show you, we're going to open up a Vectric file and we're going to get our program started. So let me cut over to our Vectric screen and we'll bring that into view. And I want to create a new file. So as I said, I'm using VCarve Pro. This is version 12.008, which is the current version as of July 10th, 2024. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and we are presented with our job setup screen. It's the very first thing that we have to work through to get our project going. My job type is single-sided. I'm not going to be carving on the back side of this flag. And my job size, I've specified it to be 28.5 inches in width by 15 inches in height, with a material thickness of 0.75 inches. How did I decide that that's going to be my job size? How do I know that 28.5 and 15 are the proper dimensions? There's a nifty calculator that you can use that will help you determine your flag measurements. And let me show you what it is. I like to use Omni Calculator, and it's available on the web. Just go to omnicalculator.com/other/flag, and it will bring you to this page. And it's really cool. It gives you all the ratios, the proper ratios of how the flag should be. So for perhaps if you have a set measurement for this measurement A, which is known as the hoist, or what they refer to as the width, if you fill that in right here, like say minus 15 inches, as I said a moment ago, it tells you what all the other measurements are supposed to be based on that one measurement. And it's got them all listed. You've got the hoist, you've got the length of the flag, you've got star diameters, you've got star spacing, and you have stripe width, you have the size of this union, this area where all the stars go. Really easy to figure out your flag measurements by using this calculator. And we're going to refer to this a couple times as I go through this tutorial. So with our job setup on Vectric, we're going to start with our flag measurements of 28.5 and 15 and a material thickness of 0.75, as I said. And you can use any measurement you choose. Z0 position is going to be the material surface, And our XY datum position for design purposes only, we're going to use the center of the project just to make it a little bit easier. When we get ready to save the file later on, we'll move that XY datum position off to the lower left. Modeling resolution is going to be standard, and actually you don't need to be even worry about that. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And as you can see, we're ready to go. We have our project sized properly, and we're ready to go. So I want to create a guide layer or some guides that I can use during the design process of this. So let's go ahead and select layer, and the first thing I want to do is change the name of this layer just to keep things organized, and I'm going to call it guides. Hit enter on my keyboard. And you know what? I might as well add some new layers too, since I'm going to be using some different layers throughout this project. We'll call this stars. We'll hit enter on the keyboard, and let's add another final layer, and we'll call it stripes. Now we're on stripes. We know it's the active layer because it's highlighted here. It's a little bit darker than the other two, but I want the guide layer to be the primary layer at this point. So I'm going to highlight guides, and I'm going to click off of that. I can see that guides is the active layer. So we're going to create two rectangles for this guide layer. We're going to create one that is the overall project dimension, which is 28.5 by 15, which we specified in our job setup. And we're going to create one that is the size of the union, or this union area, which sits in the upper left of the flag. So let's start by creating our rectangle that is the job size, or our overall size. And we want to do it from an X0, Y0 anchor point, and we want square corners, and we want it to be 28.5 by 15 inches. So I'm going to create that rectangle. And it looks like nothing happened, but actually something did happen. So if we close this, and if we highlight that vector that we just created, we can see that it actually turned pink, and we can see that it's there. So let's click off of that, and let's go ahead and create our second rectangle that we need on our guide layer, excuse me. I'm going to click on Draw Rectangle. And we have to know the dimensions for this as well. And I said earlier it was going to be our union area. So let's jump back over to our Omni calculator and refer to the measurements that it says to make our union based on our flag, which is 15 by 28.5. You can see our union width, or the hoist again, is 8.08, and our union length is 11.4. So we'll get into Vectric. And we're going to go 11.4 by 8.08. Now let's create that rectangle. And you can see that that has created the union that we need, the area where our stars are going to go. But now we got to put it in place. So let's close the Draw Rectangle function, and let's select this union, and now let's hold down Shift on our keyboard and hit this outer rectangle that we created, the rectangle that we want to align to. And under our transform functions, we're going to come to our align selected objects, and we're going to go over to the inside edge on the left side, and we're going to go to the top edge on the inside. And you can see it moves that second rectangle up into alignment with where it needs to be. So let's close that. Now let's get off of the guide layer. So I'm going to click off of that, and let's click into the stars layer. And I need to create some stars here. So we're actually only going to create one star, and then we're going to use what's called an array copy. And if you've never used an array copy, you're going to really like it. So let's go to the under Create Vectors. We're going to create a star, which is a draw star. And we want the number of points to be 5. This is a 5-pointed star on the American flag. Again, 0 or center point X0, Y0, so it'll put it right in the middle of our project. Outer radius is 0.46. And let me show you how I got that. If you scroll down in the Omni calculator, you will see that it has a star diameter of 0.92. It doesn't list a radius, it just lists the diameter. Well, we all should know from mathematics in junior high school that a radius is half of a diameter, and you could actually divide that by 2 and just put that number right into Vectric. But if you didn't know that, a little pro tip, just so you can, if you ever need to use mathematical functions, you could put in 0.92 as the radius, and then use your multiplication symbol, which is the asterisk, and then times 0.5, and then just use the equal sign to calculate that, and it calculates your radius for you at 0.46. Your inner radius percentage, from experience, I know that to get a perfect looking star, it's going to be 38. So make sure that if you want that perfect straight looking star for your American flag, that you use an inner radius percentage of 38. Other software out there may use different ways of creating stars and adjusting them to making them look good. But this is what I do within VCarve Pro. So I'm going to hit create on my with my mouse, and you can see it places that star right in the center of the project, as I had said before. So I'm going to close that, and now, like I said, we're not going to create any more stars. We're just going to do an array copy of the star that we already created. Make it really easy, really simple. So your array copy function is down in your offset and layout area, and it's the second one over from the left. So let's go ahead, let's first highlight the star we want to do an array copy of, and let's click on the offset, or excuse me, the array copy. And we want, how many rows and columns do we want? Well, for starters, let's do 5 rows and 6 columns. Let's jump back over and I'll explain what we're going to do here. This will make it easier to understand. So the first, we're going to make 2 groups of stars. This first group of stars, we're going to make 5 rows of 6 columns. Well, here's the rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to make 6 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you can see what my mouse is pointing at. And then the second group of stars, we're going to make these interior stars, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So we're going to do it in 2 waves. Our first one, we're going to go 5 rows, 6 columns, and we're going to change this, or excuse me, we're going to make the gap 0.95 in the X direction and 0.81 in the Y direction. And how do we get that measurement? Again, it's in our Omni calculator under star gaps, 0.81 and 0.95. So we are ready to go. Let's hit copy. And it created those, or that first group of stars that I had mentioned. So let's go ahead and let's make the second group. And there's a really quick and easy way that you can do this, guys, at least the way that I do it. I hold down Control on my keyboard, and I'll come over here and I'll click and drag this group of stars down. So now I have 2 sets. And what I'll do is, let me click off of both of them, and I'm just going to go ahead on this lower group. I'm going to select this top row. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard. I'm going to select this final column over here on the right, and I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard again. So now what I want to do is I want to group these independent sets of stars that I created. I'm going to select this lower group, and I'm going to hit G on my keyboard for group. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select this top group. I'm going to hit G on my keyboard. Now, all I have to do now to properly align them is, again, select this lower set, hold down Shift, select this upper set. Let me close the array copy function since we don't need it. Again, transform objects, align selected objects, and then under align to selection, we'll just simply hit the center button here. And you can see it moved that lower group up to the upper group right where it needs to be. Now with them all aligned together, let's group them together as a final group. So I'm going to hit G on my keyboard. Oops. Let me close the alignment tools. Now we'll select them and hit G on the keyboard. And we need to move this set of stars right where it needs to be over on in the upper left area of our flag. So I'm going to hold down Shift, select our union group, or our union guide, I should say. And we're going to align selected again, and we're going to align to selection. And it moved it right where it needs to be. So let's close that. Now we need to create some stripes. So we're going to click off of everything and we're going to go up to the proper layer, which is stripes. I'll click off of that. As you can see, it's the active layer. And our stripes are nothing more than rectangles. So I'm going to click on rectangles. Again, X0, Y0 for an anchor point, square corners, and my size. Now, what I do when I carve my flags, all my flags start pre-stained black in color, and then I carve them. Of course, the milling bits will carve everything, revealing the wood behind. That is what commonly is referred to as a subdued flag. They're not red, white, and blue. They're black in color, just black and wood, two-toned. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I like to do is I like to take my stripes past the edge of the flag. So the milling bit will start off the surface of one edge of the flag, come through and make a pass. When it makes its passes, cutting the stripes out, it will extend beyond the edges of both sides of the flag, if that makes sense to you. So I want to specify a width of, like I said, I want it to go past, and ½ inch on each side is pretty good. So my dimensions for my job are 28.5. I'll make it 29.5. And then my height, again, let's refer back to our Omni calculator. Our stripe width is, or H, is 1.15. And we'll hit create. And it places one stripe right in the middle of the project. So let's close that. We're not going to create more stripes. We're just going to do an array copy of the stripe that we just created. And using the knowledge that we just learned through array copy, we can apply that to these stripes just like we did the stars. So let's go ahead and select that stripe. Whoops, you know what? We lost our guide, but that's okay. I must have deleted it when we were moving those stars around. So what I'm going to go ahead and do, because we're going to need the guide to align the stripes too, I'm just going to simply create another rectangle on our guide for our outside job dimensions. So let's go to rectangle and square corners, 28.5 by 15. Create, close, and let's make sure it's there. It's there. Okay, so stripes. Let's select this stripe, hold down Shift, and select what we want to align to. And let's go ahead and align it to the inside edge at the bottom. And it brought that stripe down right where it needs to be. Now, like I said, we're going to use the array copy function. And again, we're going to find that down in our offset and layers area here at the bottom on the left side of your screen. So let me click off of that and just select the stripe. We don't want to select the guide during this function. And we'll click on offset and layout. And we need to decide what our columns and rows are going to be. Well, we want one column, we know that. And we want 13 rows because there's 13 stripes. And what Vectric will do is it will include the stripe that you've already created when it does its array copy. You don't need to put 12 here, just put the overall number that you need. And then our X, Y gap is going to be 0. So I'm going to hit 0 and 0 because we're not shifting these copies in any way or creating space between them. We just want them to stack right on top of one another. So I'm going to go ahead and hit copy. And you can see it places all of the stripes right where they need to be. There's just some minor adjustment that needs to take place, and we'll just shift them up to where they're in alignment with how it needs to be. So, and as you can see, that group of stripes, and there is a slight gap. If we zoom in here, you can see that gap right there. This is so minuscule, you're not going to see it. And what it is how these stripes, when they're created, when they actually overlap on one another, there is, if you count up 13 of them, this is the leftover space after 13 stripes being stacked on one another. If we had spaced it out exactly to where they're butting up against one another, times 13, this gap wouldn't exist. But like I said, you're not going to notice this when you create your flag. So I've found this just to be a quick and easy way to do it. If you want to make those calculations and get it right on the money, feel free, you be you. So with all of our stripes created, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit close. I don't need the array copy open anymore. Now, as I said before, or maybe I didn't mention it, we're only carving white stripes, or what would be white stripes on the flag. We are leaving the darker stripes, or what would be the red stripes, alone. So I'm going to, since we want to carve the white stripes, which is every other stripe here, we want to get rid of the black stripes, or red stripes. What would be red stripes? So I'm going to go ahead and I am just going to go ahead and select all of my black stripes, which is every other stripe. And I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard, and that just leaves the white stripes. So now what do? Well, we don't want these white stripes over here interfering with the union or these stars in any way. We need to align this left edge of these top 3 stripes with the right edge of the union. So I'm going to come into node editing. It's a real quick way you can do it. And I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to select the 3 stripes over here on the left side, and you'll have to do this twice and get that to the point where they turn red. Then you can use the right arrow on your keyboard and just move these nodes over to where they line up to the right side of the union. Let me see how close I got it. There we go, close enough. Like I said, we're talking probably a thousandth or a 10,000th of an inch. You're not going to see the difference. Trust me on this. I've made enough of these flags. That's all we need, or that's now that we've got our design down. We don't need our guides anymore. Let me go back to the selection tool and erase the guides. So I'm going to delete those. And now we have just the stars and we have just the stripes. And we're ready to establish toolpaths. In fact, for our project, we can come up here to our layer and we can actually delete the guide layer since there's nothing on it anymore. So I'm going to hit delete that. So we're just left with stars and stripes. And let's close that. And I'm going to open up my toolpath function, which is over here on the right. I'm going to pin it down so it doesn't close on us. And you can essentially do this carve with 2 bits. You can do your stars with a 90-degree V-bit, and you can do your pocket toolpath on your stripes with a 1/4-inch end mill. I choose to use 2 end mills on my pocket for my stripes. I use a 1/4 inch end mill as my clearance toolpath, and then I use an 1/8 inch toolpath just to clean out the edges right up, especially in here. I can get a little tighter on these corners and get those radiuses real tight. So what we'll do is I like to carve my stars first. So I'm going to select those. I'm going to come over here to VCarve, and I use a V90 bit. It's a groovy Jenny bit from Cadence Manufacturing. I also, on occasion, I will use an Amana V-bit. I will link these bits in the description below. I will also link the end mills that I use in the description below if you want to get a hold of them. Great bits. They'll last you a long time if you take care of them and you don't drive them too hard. Mine, the ones I'm using, I've been using them now for probably a couple of years, and they are going strong. So I've got my bit selected. Cutting depth, we're going to start at 0 inches right on the material surface with these stars. And all we need to do with this toolpath is name it. So I'm just going to go 90 V Union. I'm going to hit calculate. And I'll close that since it's created. And for our next toolpath are the stripes, like I said. I need to group them. So I'm going to group them all. I'm going to come up here to Pocket Toolpath. Click on it. And these are the bits that I use. I use an Amana 46202, which is my 1/4 inch end mill. And that's my clearance bit. And a 46200, which is an 1/8 inch end mill as the final pass. And they are both down cut end mills. They work great. You won't be disappointed if you use these bits, trust me. You want to specify your cutting depth. I start at 0, which is the material surface, and mine is 1/16 of an inch. If you don't know the decimal point of your cut depth, just simply put in your fraction. Again, use your equal sign, and it will automatically calculate that out to what the decimal point will be. So my end mill, like I said, it's a 1/4 inch diameter. I'm going to put it in the raster direction since my grain runs sideways, side to side. And I'm going to use a conventional cut for this with a last pass. And I'm going to ramp the plunge move 1/2 inch. I like to ramp my plunge moves on end mills double the diameter. So this is a 1/4 inch. We're going to ramp it 1/2 inch. Now we just need to name it 0.25 for 1/4 end mill stripes. And I'm going to hit calculate, and it calculates them both out. And it calculates them both out because these two tools are tied together for this tool path. So let's close this. And when Vectric creates the tool path, and there's multiple tools tied to that tool path, they all get the same name. So I know this is an 1/8 inch bit, but it's showing it to be a 1/4 inch bit. So I need to rename this just for my own edification. And when I'm running this on my CAM software out in the shop, if I need to refer to something, I can quickly see, oh yeah, that's the 1/8 inch bit. So I like to rename this one what it actually is. I'm going to right click on it, come down here to rename, and we'll make it exactly an 1/8 inch bit, which is 0.125 of an inch. And it's an E for end mill stripes. We'll hit enter on the keyboard and we're good to go. So now, guys, it's just a matter of saving your project. That is done over here under the Save Toolpath function over here on the right. But let's take a look at the 3D view and see what we've created. I'm going to come up here and select 3D. And our 3D viewer is Preview Toolpaths right here. Looks like this little YouTube symbol, right? And we'll click on that. And we'll wait for it. Okay. Now we get this screen and we can preview all toolpaths. So let's preview all toolpaths. And the speed at which this calculates is all dependent on how you set up your modeling resolution and the speed of your PC. And here we go. I'm going to angle it a little bit and we'll zoom in, and that is our project, folks, and that's what our CNC machine is going to carve. Like I said, the project starts off black, and then what we're carving out is the stripes and the stars, and believe me, this looks beautiful when it's all done. If you're making public safety flags, such as a police flag, a thin blue line flag, you can come back later and stain this stripe blue or red for firefighter flag, maybe yellow for dispatcher. There's some different variations of public safety flags you can do. If you want to bring in some graphics, maybe you have a patch or a badge or something to that effect that you want to put over in this area, you can easily do that. We're going to build on this video, and I'm going to talk about importing graphics and how to bring those in to your flags, properly place them in a subsequent video. So stay tuned to this series. And if you are enjoying this and this is making some good sense to you and you want to learn more, please hit like on this video, hit subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content. It's always a pleasure to have you on board watching my stuff. I really appreciate it. And with that, we'll see you on the next go-around for how we can expand on this flag and some more good stuff in the future. So take care, y'all.